3D Vintage Style Santa Claus Acrylic Nail Art Tutorial by Hotpinkzebrapolish.
Hi everybody, in today's video I have a very vintage, very cute little Santa. So I say it's vintage style because it's got more of that really rosy cheek, very pink, very rounded features, more like 1950s style Santa that you see like with all the Coke bottles, kind of that sort of a style of Santa Claus. So I really like this. Coke Santas are something that we have around my house at Christmas time, and I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and don't forget to click subscribe to see all my future videos as well. Bye! Bye!
I'm going to begin with an overlay of a subdued green color acrylic. So the reason I say subdued is you don't want like a really bright Christmas green. Any of those vintage style Santa Claus that you might see have not as vibrant of colorations with them. So mauves and light greens and all of that is more of what you want to go with for this particular design. So just apply that green color over the background and then encase the nail with a layer of clear acrylic to make sure that it is nice and strong. So just go over the whole thing with clear. That's your protective layer, the layer that's going to keep the nail from breaking. And then after you have that done, you're going to want to file the nail into shape with your e-file, starting out with a coarse bit to remove any bulk. Just go over the whole thing to make sure it is nice and smooth. And then after you have that done, you're going to want to switch to a finer bit to refine the surface texture and make it easier to work on top of. And this design has a lot of little details sculpted into it, so that is very important. And then I'm going to be sculpting Santa Claus's face with I'm going to start with just the area around his eyes and using a beige color acrylic. You don't need to do his entire face right from the beginning because he's got a mustache in there and such a very huge beard that if you sculpt in a chin, it's just going to be covered up anyway and is unnecessary. So create little indents for where his eyes are and a little bridge of his nose, and then add the end of his nose with acrylic. Add little nice round cheeks. And just add all of those facial details and depth and highlights to his face as best as you can. And if you guys are wondering what the noises are in the background of my videos lately, it's my cat. She decides that she really has to join me when I do voiceovers these days, and she's been making all sorts of a ruckus around me all the time. Right now she's purring uncontrollably. But after you have that part done, I'm going to take some white acrylic and apply that over basically the tip of the nail to create his beard. Take the tip of your brush and just sort of squiggle it through that acrylic to create the little texture and the curls of his beard. Add the brim of his hat with white acrylic just over the top of his forehead. And as you're sculpting Santa, you're going to slowly see him come to life. In the beginning, he looks very strange, but the more details you add, it really comes and begins to show what you're really going for. Then take some red acrylic, and again, not a bright candy red, more of almost a burgundy color red is good, and add the top of his hat going off to one side. And then add the rest, some more of his hair. Just keep going through, and you don't have to do everything at once, but anytime you switch between, say, red acrylic and white acrylic, make sure that you clean your brush because you don't want pink. You don't want him to have a pink beard or a pink mustache. So bear that in mind when you're going between colors of acrylic like that. But you can definitely hop around and do different parts here and there. Add his mustache right underneath his nose, and that kind of curls up on the ends too. And then add a little bit of hair that's showing on the other side of his face. When you're doing something that has a vintage styling to it like this nail, it doesn't look, a lot of like the features don't look modern, which is obvious if it's vintage, but it's just got a slightly different vibe to it, and it's something that you have to really look at because there's little details that, you might paint eyes on your designs all the time, but then you go to switch the era that you're trying to replicate something from, and how you do it changes entirely. So after I'm going to be adding his little mouth, his lower lip with that same color of beige I used, and his ear, and then add his eyebrows with white. And just keep adding details, and then when you are happy with the details you've added with acrylic, you're going to want to switch to paint, and I'm going to dilute some red paint, and I'm going to be warming up the color of his face. So just take and add some of that red on his nose and his cheeks and his lips, and a little bit on his ear as well. So just imagine he's been out in the cold for, who knows, all year probably in the North Pole. He's gonna have rosy cheeks, and then add a little bit of a highlight with a brighter shade of red on his hat, not too much. You still want to keep it with that vintage vibe. And then with gray paint, you're going to want to be adding some shadows on his hat and his eyebrows and basically anywhere where there's white acrylic, you're going to want to be adding some shadows with acrylic paint. So just keep adding those and bring out all of the shadows and the highlights. In a design like this, you want to really take your time and add as much detail as you can. Outline his ears, add some outlines here and there with some black anywhere you want to. Add the outlines. And if you want, you can dilute your black paint with a little bit of water, and that's going to help create those really nice skinny lines that kind of make or break a design. So just add those. Add the outlines around his hat as well. And then go through and add the details to his eyes. So just start out by doing little outlines for his eyes with black. And then after you have those outlines, fill them in with some white paint. Just like so. It doesn't take too much. You don't want to overdo. I keep saying you want to add all these details, but you also don't want to overdo a design like this vintage style. You want to add what's necessary, but then be happy with it and be done. So just fill in those eyes. Don't like give them eyelashes or anything crazy like that. You can also take your white paint and add some highlights to the different areas of the design that are white. Eyebrows, mustache, beard, hat, etc. And fill those in. You want this little Santa Claus to look so happy and jolly and like he could just walk right off the nail. And after you have it that far, you're going to need to add the color in his eyes with some blue or whatever color you want. Nobody really knows, so just, choose the color. I think most of the vintage art I've seen of Santa, he has blue eyes. Add some outlines on his lower lip, a couple little highlights on his cheeks and his nose. Take some black and add his pupils, and you are pretty much all set. Little white highlight in each eye, and you can do some top coating. So apply some matte top coat over Santa, and then apply some gel sealer over the background and over his eyes and over his mouth. So just take a tiny bit of that gel sealer and make those really, really shiny. After that's cured, you're all done. I love this design. I love all that vintage art stuff. My mom used to paint all kinds of things like this, and so it's something I've been around for my whole life. I hope you guys like it as much as I do, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!